structure Visual Studio Team Services and Team Foundation Server for team collaboration. In this video, I'm going to introduce Microsoft Teams. This is a tool that can be used with Visual Studio Team Services or TFS to allow the cultural side of DevOps to be adopted through people and conversation and content. So part of it is introducing this new ChatOps process, which is around things like Microsoft Bot Framework or conversational artificial intelligence that allows you to communicate and talk to other people within your organization at scale. And then secondly, we're also going to look at other tools that could be used, such as Slack, which is a very popular within the community around a cloud-based proprietary system. So how do we set this up? If you're using Visual Studio Team Services, it's as simple as just going in and configuring the connector that will allow you to connect directly in to your Visual Studio Team Services repository. If it's Team Foundation Server you're wanting to connect to, this requires you to have to actually connect in with the service hook, which is a little bit more complex, but very still straightforward. Please note you can do both of these at the same time and connect to both repositories or a number of different repositories. This is the advantage at the more scale portfolio level. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cover some of what Teams can bring to the table as far as capabilities. So I mentioned Microsoft Teams can integrate directly into Visual Studio Team Services and TFS at the same time, but also you can do additional capabilities once you've got this connection in place. You can look at leveraging things like the Microsoft Bot Framework. So that's some of the implementations that I've done. I've used speech recognition capability, so people are able to actually ask the bot, whereabouts am I within the application? Is there any issues, any bugs? And at this point, it will look through the test cases, it'll understand the model of where I am on the screen, and then it could also go and provision me test data. It could spin me test environments up if I need to. I can just have a conversation like you would with your virtual personal assistant like Alexa or something like Google. So that's one of the other options, using simple Google API for speech recognition, or you could use something a bit more complex like language understanding, so things like Microsoft Lewis. This is where you start feeding in all this knowledge from, say for instance, your wikis. It could be from your FAQs, it could be from documentation that you've produced, and what Lewis will do will actually allow the conversational AI bot to actually be able to understand the context behind that. So if you're in derivatives, it'll understand what the different terminology being used and try and respond to you the best it can. And this is taking it a step further once you get to the linguistic analysis capabilities that are starting to come through, and that's when you start looking at big data and patterns, and it gets a little bit more complex. And then entity linking intelligence, which is kind of the next stage along linking all those nodes together so it understands context in a much more powerful way. So these things are coming through and really are powerful within the Microsoft Teams front. The other option within the community is, of course, is Slack. It supports both conversational AI and something what they call dialogue, which these dialogue is going to be where we actually can build an app that the AI bot is actually responding in more of a web page, some kind of mobile app. So it's kind of coming out saying, do you want to pick one of the following options? Are you interested in A, B, or C? It's really trying to help that experience for those people who aren't more happy with the use of natural language, or potentially when you're moving into CLI, so command line interface, or any kind of if that then this recipe. So you've got to have some structure behind that, otherwise the bot can't understand it. So really this is the next stage along. And then there's extensions in this. So there's things like the community. So actually chatbots.org has a whole stack of virtual agents that you can actually do, which have a whole stack of APIs to give you more capabilities. You can also, if you really wanted to, you could have commercial applications like IBM Watson Conversation, which you could embed into here. For the example, what you're seeing on the right hand side, this is a product called VIP, which is the visual integration process by Curiosity Software Island. And this actually is a bot which works both in Slack and also in Teams that allows you to kick off jobs down the DevOps release pipeline. So in this particular example, you can say to it, oh, go and create me some test data. It will synthetically generate millions of rows of data in the necessary databases, come back and give you a file. That file then will be passed into some kind of build agent. So this could be your vNext build. This could be Jenkins, where there's a job that needs to be executed with that data. So you can chain these together, and then the bot will actually come back to you and say, okay, I've created your sandbox, now going to run these tests. I'm now going to come back with the results, and then it interacts with you. But this is, incredibly powerful when it comes to this kind of conversational AI capability with DevOps powered behind it. So here's a quick example of a bot which you can download already, which kind of looks at your calendar or your schedule or your meetings, which are all integrated into the Microsoft Teams platform. And then it comes up to you like Alexa would do, or Siri, and says, okay, I'm looking at your calendar. I could recommend the following outcomes. And this is very similar when we're talking about how we do this with technology decisions. So do you want me to release this 40%, the confidence rating's 80, are you happy me to release this into production? So, part of it is a huge amount of bots, and they'll really help with those integration points when it comes to Visual Studio Team Services and TFS. Okay, so we've got Microsoft Teams connected in this case, Trello and also Visual Studio Team Services. So you can do this simply by clicking on the connectors button, and then all you need to do is scroll down to the product that you're wanting to do. So in this case, I've configured Visual Studio Team Services. I could also configure, if I wanted to, TFS, but the ones that I've got at the moment, I've configured that if any work items are commented in this product, then notify me. If any work items are updated in this project, update me. So let me just quickly jump into a project. Okay, so I'm now in a story view, and in this case, a project that we've just finished at a high level has just been delivered. So I can move it from done to into my phase, which is the transition, which is handing it over back to the business. I'm going to start seeing that those notifications come up in Microsoft Teams. And as you can see, Microsoft Visual Studio Team Services has updated me that this particular project has moved. I've obviously got a click, so I can go straight to the view work item. This will launch the browser and allow me to see what this particular story is. Alternatively, I can go straight in to Visual Studio Team Services and look at the stories and how this has moved across on the Kanban board to transition. So this just gives you a taste of how you could structure Visual Studio Team Services and TFS to do a lot more than just using Teams and setting up Teams to actually allow you to interface with the Visual Studio Team Services and Team Foundation Server. You can bring in things like Bot Framework, you can bring in Visual, you can bring in any of the Microsoft Cognitive Services that are at the bottom. You could also bring in your CRM, your Office tools. You can start looking at really the art of the possible of what you can do when it comes to team collaboration. In the next video, I'm going to manage your portfolio